Welcome to another edition of A 15-Minute Perspective of Purposeful and Powerful Living Strategies. I'm your host, Karen Jackson. Today's special guest is Mrs. Kim Jarvis. She is the president of OnPurpose Women's Network, which is a mentoring and training program geared towards women with an emphasis of women in Christian leadership. Her desire is to move women past their fears and inhibitions and to pursue the desires of their hearts. So we thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Karen, for allowing me to be here. I'm excited.
I am too. So let's get started.
Okay.
You know, success comes in various different ways, and it means different things to different people. What are 5 principles of success that you believe help you fulfill your purpose and your success in your life?
So I actually do live by 5 guiding principles. Everything that, when I work, what I focus on. The first is that what I desire desires me too. And sometimes people forget that the desires that you have in your heart, the things that you want to accomplish in your life, that maybe it's some idea that you have in your mind, maybe it's not really true, maybe that it can't be accomplished. But the reality of it is, if you have a desire for it, it's probably what you're supposed to do, as long as it's morally, legally, ethically correct. And so I try to instill that into people, especially women, because you can trust your desires. You can trust what you want, and the thing that you want wants you too. So that's the first thing. The second is that we are co-creators with God. God is working with us. We're working with God to fulfill our purpose, basically. And so I try to focus on that I am not in this alone, that I have help, that I have assistance, that even in my weakness, that there's someone stronger than me to fulfill that which I'm called to do. So I don't have to worry about if I feel like I don't have the capacity to do what I'm called to do. So I'm a co-creator with God. That's the second one. The third one is that everything that I want to accomplish, it has to be done by faith. That I can't accomplish anything of significance, of substance, that's long lasting without faith. And so we have to have faith. We have to believe the impossible. We have to believe those things that we don't yet see modeled before us. Just because we don't see it doesn't mean that it's not possible. And so a lot of that requires faith. And the final thing is that everything about my existence and about anybody's existence is on purpose. I really want people to believe that we're not a mistake, that our existence is not a mistake. Those things about us, things that may even like or not like, our height, our weight, the color of our skin, whatever, that is by design and on purpose. And so that everything you need, you have it. And if you don't have it, you don't need it. And so we don't have to worry about getting other, of course, we have to be educated, we have to develop ourselves, but those things about us that make us unique, everything you need, you have it to accomplish that unique purpose that you're designed to accomplish. So I kind of live by those 5 principles all the time, and usually that steers me in the right direction.
The desires of your heart, and wanting that whatever it is that you want wants you too. I think that's important because I think sometimes maybe some things we think we want until we get it. And then we realize, okay, maybe I didn't quite want it that way.
That's right. And it's true. And that's why you have to co-labor with God, because in the process, He'll show you, okay, you have this desire, but let me show you a better way. And then you realize what you thought you wanted is not really what you want, or something better. And so you always, in work with God, you say, God, give me this or something better. So you never can lose. But if you're working, co-laboring, co-creating with God, you're always in that flow of knowing, okay, is this really your will? That's why you can't do it alone. That's why you have to walk by faith, and you have to still trust those desires. Sometimes we hear God, we know it's God's will, and we still don't trust it, and so we don't pursue it. And many times we go years and years never fulfilling and pursuing those things that we really desire, to do. And we spend years doing other things that have no real lasting value.
And you're right too, because I always say, because I'm always a planner, Kim,
I
like to plan.
Yes, you do.
But God's wisdom has taught me that you can plan all you want, but you got to leave a little room for God's plan to come and trump your plan sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
Because,
most times.
Exactly, because like you said, at being that co-creator, you can have a plan, but God's plan may be totally different to give you something better, greater, more abundant. But sometimes if we're so focused on our plan, then we don't leave room for God to come in and do what He does.
And that's the part about having faith, because the plan, which is a great to be a planner, but sometimes you have to say, God, even if I don't have a plan, I trust you. and I can walk this thing out by faith. And so that part is really about saying, I trust you, God, even if I don't see how this is going to work out. And even if my plan, is not working according to schedule, you have this totally mapped out. And all I'm doing is taking one step, and then I'll take another step and another step. And so it really is, that's about walking by faith.
And that's so important, too, because I think it also helps us to redefine what success looks like, because what we may think success looks like may be a little bit different than what God looks at, the way he sees it and the way he defines it.
Absolutely. I believe God's always getting us to see it from his perspective, from a kingdom perspective, not like the world's perspective, what success is. And if we all think about it, there's never been a time that God hasn't done something in our life we thought, man, if I lose this, I'm going to be devastated. But when he completes the work, you're like, oh, wow, I should have waited for this a long time ago, or trusted you in the beginning.
Absolutely.
And not have taken many detours, because he always knows what's best for us. His love is amazing, and you can never shine love. So
absolutely, and helps us to avoid a lot of pitfalls and stay out of the wilderness.
And heartache and heartbreak.
Absolutely.
And discouragement and regret. A list of things that we've all experienced, and if we could turn back the hands of time, we would say, I would have done it this way. God, I would have trusted you more. I would have had more faith. I would have allowed myself to work with you, listen to you to do what it is, and not just been so about what my plan was and do it my way. And we've all done, every single person done. And I only speak to it because I've done it.
Absolutely.
You only teach what you've already walked through.
Absolutely.
So these 5 things, I've failed terribly at them all. That's why I can
Amen,
speak to it. So that's why we get here.
So let's talk about, you said you're a co-creator with God. Did God give you the vision for OnPurpose Women Network?
So, I've always, as a young girl, kind of always had a sense of God, the things of God, but really struggle with purpose and struggle with fear. Like, how is this going to come to fruition, this call on my life? And so, as I got older, maybe in my 30s, just realized that this is God's work in and through me. And so what he taught me was that, Kim, your job is to trust that everything about you, like I said, is on purpose. That I didn't make a mistake with you, and that your bents, your proclivities are by design. I will use that for my glory. I will use that to touch other people. So if you're not like other people, that's okay. You have to live on purpose. So it's kind of like a play on words, meaning on purpose by design, on purpose, and also to be on purpose, intentional, to live with intent, not focus on all these other things, but to live on purpose with the purpose that I've been called to. So he just kind of spoke that to me, that your job is to make sure that you live on purpose and with intent, and that you help other people do the same. And that's why the network is about mentoring, because our goal is that we mentor one another to get to their desired destination, their desired purpose, and then help somebody else do the same. So if you're a mentor, then if you're a mentee, ultimately you become a mentor, because we're always trying to compel one another to move forward, to push forward. Like you doing this great podcast, push forward. This is a great example of someone that saw something that they want to do, and they're doing it. It's amazing.
Well, it's only because of God being in a right position. And I think that is, to me, that speaks to that living on purpose, because sometimes, you can have a vision and God can give you a vision, but you're not in the position to really receive that. That's
exactly right. You're not. And so you have to make sure that that's, once again, walking with God, walking by faith, and trusting that if he showed you this, he intends for you to do it. And the thing about it is, we don't have the excuse of saying, God, I'm not able, because if he called you for it, he already knows your capacity. And so the thing about God, from what I've learned, is that he won't stop. He's very relentless about getting what he wants. The other thing I think I forgot to mention is that the plan that God has for our life has not been forfeited. I talk to a lot of women often, Karen, and they feel as they get older that they've wasted time, that God has changed his mind, that their plan's been forfeited. And the fact that you're living and breathing and the desire is there, God can still use you. Sometimes things change. I always say you can take a different path to get to the same destination. And coming here today, I had to take a detour to get to the studio, but I still ended up here.
Correct.
It would have been different if the detour hadn't been there, but I still ended up at the same destination. So I like to encourage women, don't give up hope. The plan has not been forfeited. The desires you have, God still has them for you. And so, we're listening to those things and we get the vision or the dream about what God has. Trust that. And it doesn't matter what time, how long it's been.
Absolutely. And I think that too, it also speaks to that scripture that talks about how God, He works it all out for our good.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently, just going through my own experiences, helped me to see with my mom being ill and going through a whole series of things that I did not expect. And I kind of felt like, okay, but that's not, I don't see how this is working for that. And that seems totally off than what God has been showing me. But He has a way of, if you keep trusting Him and you keep Him at the forefront, He shows you how all of those things still work together for your good. Even when you make a mistake, even when you take that detour,
Absolutely.
like you said, if you keep your hand in His hand, He still takes you back. You may take that long road around, but He still brings you right back where He wants you to be.
Because His ultimate goal is to get glory from our lives.
Absolutely.
And so God wants it more than we want it. He wants to be glorified through our lives. And so He's doing whatever He can to make sure He gets it to that point. And so He will use, like you said, situations that seem seemingly distraction or not in line with everything, but sometimes He's using things we've learned in the past to help us in the present. And sometimes He's showing us things about ourselves, because if those things aren't exposed, we can't get to the next level. So pressure is a great way to find out what you're made of. And usually when it's a tough spot, we get to see where we're lacking in emotional maturity, our emotional IQ. Those are the things we get to see, so we can say, okay, God, I need help with this. I need your grace. And I found when I'm in a tough spot or things don't seem to make sense, He's trying to show me things about me so I can get them out of the way for the next level. And so He uses that too, but it is always to get us to the ultimate destination, Karen.
I totally agree. And I said, sometimes our prayers are, just, Lord, help me to remove this burden and remove this. And sometimes He has to take you through that to grow you through that. So it's really about the growth process, like you said, whether it's exposing things that you need to work on yourself that could be blocking the blessings and the things that God has for you.
Exactly. And so it's always a learning process, and it's always for our good. That's how you know it's always for your good, because at the end of it, you're better. Sometimes the situation doesn't change, but you're better. And that's how God always works it, for your good. Not necessarily for the good of the situation, but for your good is how I've seen it play out in my life.
So let's talk about, you mentioned about the OnPurpose Women's Network being about Christian leadership. Let's talk a little bit about that, and in terms of sometimes the roles that we think women should play in Christian ministry, and how fear plays into that process.
So fear, we always use that phrase, fear is false evidence appearing real. But when fear is facing you, it's real. And it is
very real.
Very real. And so I like that, and I use that, but it's real. And I have been frustrated for many, many years, Karen, about seeing women, having a call in my life, knowing very early what God wanted me to do as far as ministry, but never seeing really models in front of me. I associate with a lot of women in ministry. Some of them are pastors' wives, but I saw myself in a different capacity, and I was frustrated. How are women advanced? I would go to business meetings, and I would see how women would have mentors for business, and women would have, coaches, but I didn't see that same model for Christian and women in Christian community, in the church. We have mothers in the church, and we have women that support us and women that are mentors, but there's not a lot of structure for that. And there's not a lot of strategic planning to get us to that point. And I wanted to see that in the church. If the world is wiser than the church, why can't we take some of those same concepts and principles in the church? If they can take a woman that is entry-level job, for instance, and someone mentors her and teaches her everything she knows and works with her and helps her to advance, gives her opportunities to showcase her talents in the job, why can't we do that in the Christian community? Why can't women help one another develop a message or develop their gift, and then give them an opportunity to use that gift? And so that's kind of why the premise, because first of all, just me seeing that and being frustrated with it. Like, where do you go when you want someone to help you advance? You see yourself in one way, but it's not happening. And then there's just no real clear, to me, it was no clear path to get to where I wanted to go. And so I felt like women were marginalized and compartmentalized, and there's only so far you can go. You can be a pastor's wife, you can be an evangelist, you can be the church musician, which is all great if you're called to do that. But what if you're called to do other things? What if you're called to lead a church as a single woman? What if you're called to missions? What does that roadmap look like? And how do you do that and still be authentic and true to yourself?
Absolutely.
That's what I want to see. That's what the network is about. How you do that and be authentic to yourself, not try to copycat, not try to be like someone else. Your true authentic self walking in that calling that you feel like God has called you to. And so that's the ultimate goal of the network, is to have women come together, support one another, lift one another up with strategic mentoring, strategic plans. This is where you want to go, this is where you are, this is where you want to go. Let's develop a plan to get there. In the Christian community. And it could be even women that have their own business, that sees their business as a Christian ministry. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be people that are pastors, evangelists, teachers. It can be that. It can be dancers, writers, Christian writers, dancers, performing arts. It can be any of those disciplines.